Right. Talked about media and society. That we are trying to establish the relationship between the media and the society. And if you think about the media alone, what the media is, that's what we are going to, at the beginning, and that's what we studied. We appreciate what is the media, and then the society, and then we're going to try to draw the connection between the media and the society, and in aspect of, if you think about the media, how is the society use the media, and what impact is the media on the society, and if there could be an absence of the media, what can the situation be in that sense, right? So we talked about something to do with communication, because you say we have to think about the function of the media, and then we know usually the media, it communicates messages to various messages to the society. Now we wanted to just appreciate a little bit the aspect of communication alone. What is communication, right? So we just went through a little bit to talk about the communication and a little bit the media. But today we will continue to deal with something to do with the communication, just a little bit in detail, and then we're going to appreciate other aspects of it. Right. So we're going to start with the communication settings. Communication settings. Communication settings. Right. So we a little bit talked about just communication, in not in detail, just passing by. But when you talk about communication settings, we're usually going to appreciate 3 types of communication settings. Just put my... Okay. While I'm searching what I want to do, let's talk about interpersonal communication, machine assisted interpersonal communication, then this is talk about here. Then we'll talk about Then we talk about mass communication. Just excuse me, because I'm having a slow movement of my gadget here, so I'm trying to let it be where I want it to be. I don't know what is happening. Right, but as I'm saying here, I can still say, and then we have, let's finish this. Mass communication. Right? So when we talk about the interpersonal communication, I believe that we can have an idea just take the way the name is. What do you think interpersonal communication is? What is interpersonal communication? Okay, I'm having a problem with this, and I'm still going to just switch to another. Yeah. Just random guessing. What do you think is interpersonal communication? Any guess? Just think about it. Don't fear the whatever. Just the way it is interpersonal. What comes into your mind? Like when they say intercity, interchange, interact, it's something like that. So I wanted you to see to just gauge what do you think it would be.
I think it's communication that exists between two or more people.
Yeah, it's exactly. I don't know why you know. Okay, interpersonal communication is that communication where one person or group is interacting with another person or group, right? Without the aid of mechanical device. Because if you can see this, there is a machine assisted, meaning there is there's an assist. The communication is being assisted by a mechanical device. So this one, there is no any assistance of mechanical device. It's that communication whereby it's not like communication whereby you're using WhatsApp or you're using something else, a mechanical device, but you are communicating to one person or a group, and it's not a large group, but just a moderate group. So you are interacting with one person or group is interacting with another person or group without the aid of a mechanical device. So that is interpersonal. So in interpersonal, the source and the receiver in this form of communication are in each other's physical presence. So this is that communication whereby you are not communicating to someone who is far away. This could be more or less like face-to-face conversation. There's a person, like you came here, there was a group here. What they are doing, that is interpersonal communication. You are a person, you are seeing a person face-to-face. I mean, a person is physically available when you are communicating. So that's one of the other element. Talking to your roommate, participating in a classroom discussion, or conversing with your professor or lecturer, that is one part of the interpersonal communication. The source can be maybe one or more as a receiver. Because if you remember, last time, what we did, if you are around or you were not around, but we said that before, we talked about the communication process, whereby we said there is a communication process. You have a source, then the source will do the process of encoding, then you will pass it through a channel, then it will be decoding, then it will be a receiver, then it will be response, like feedback. So in this one, you already know that the source and the receiver are at the same place. You're talking to somebody who is encoding the message is right away where you are, within the same vicinity. At the same time, the receiver is also within the same vicinity, right? And another element of this type of communication is a variety of channels are available for use. Because we said channels are those, let me say, more or less like a path through which messages are going to pass through. So if somebody is where you are, then you're communicating. How many channels do you think? What channels would be? If you are, for example, you are communicating with your maybe roommate, what are the channels available for communication? Just to guess. What, or even the way I'm doing now, what do you think are the channels that are around to communicate? Because I can communicate the way I'm telling you I'm communicating, isn't it? But I could also manage to communicate to you without telling you anything. Because you are right here, you are seeing me, isn't it? So I could communicate without telling you anything. But it could be, for example, let me say, using the audible voice is a channel. Right? I can use the voice, I can use the eyes, I can use the body language, gestures. Right? I can use even the smell. You can use the smell, you can even use touch, because all those are the channels. People, for example, as you know, there are people who don't see, but they are able to read. How do they manage to do that? They could be managed to read if there is something, maybe they say prayer. But apart from that, if they are moving around, if there is a person around, they could communicate to somebody, maybe they cannot speak, but somebody could use maybe sense of touch to let them know something. Or you see these people who can't speak, there's all people who use sign languages. So here, as I said, one of the elements of interpersonal communication, I say that there are a variety of channels that are available for use. The receiver can see, can hear, and perhaps even smell and touch the source, right? Messages are relatively difficult for receiver to terminate and are produced at a little expensive. The thing is, this type of communication, for example, if I'm not communicating to you, if I'm here, if I'm calling you, I'm here. For you to not answer me, it will be a problem, because I'm just right here, isn't it? I will know exactly that you are ignoring, there's something. But for example, if I send you a text, and then I'm telling you something else, you could pretend that you didn't see the text. I didn't see, because it's easy for you to terminate a message when it's not interpersonal. For example, even the phone, you see it. Somebody's phone is calling, you can cancel it easily. Or there is newspaper, instead of you grabbing the newspaper, maybe you are reading, you can just say, no, throw it away. So, because it's not interpersonal. But while the person is right away there, to terminate the communication process is a little bit difficult as compared to what we are going to see, like when we reach to mass communication, and then we're going to be seeing others, because this is interpersonal, it's similar, the same. The only difference will be the use of mechanical device. But when we reach to mass communication, you discover that one of the elements of mass communication is messages could be easily terminated in mass communication, because for example, there's a newspaper communicating with something, there's TV, there's radio, so all those are communicating to you. You could make a decision to say, I don't want to listen to the radio, or maybe you're listening to the radio, you could just switch the plug off and then the message is gone. But while I'm speaking to you right here, you can try to ignore me, but can you just shut me down immediately? I'm still going to be telling you. So that's one of the elements whereby the messages are relatively difficult, because it's not that they cannot be terminated, but are relatively difficult to for the receiver to terminate. And in terms of production, they are produced with a little bit cheaper, right? Not comparing to the others, because if you know, when we are talking about, we're going to be talking about the machine assisted, you need a gadget. So if you don't need a gadget, it means even if you don't have the money, you can communicate well. What else? Interpersonal communication. The other element is messages. Okay, messages are relatively difficult Okay, so I've talked about it already. Interpersonal messages can be private, right? Or public, right? If you're talking about, let me see here. Here talk about interpersonal message, it can be private, then I think as I've already saying, or public, or proclamation by a person standing on a street. So I think, as I've said, interpersonal messages could be between you two people or a group. So if it's public, for example, it's the way it is during our times at the primary school, secondary school. I don't know if they still do that. The assembly. When you are coming to school, you say, okay, you start with the assembly. Now they will communicate messages. So they communicate because usually at the assembly, that's not mass communication. That's still interpersonal. It's a relatively small group. Now they will communicate messages to you in the public. Or they could be specific, one person, okay, can you come see me? Separate, right? So that's another element that we have to also appreciate, that the messages could be public or private. What else do we have about interpersonal? Messages can also be pinpoint to their specific targets. So you can have the messages that are pinpoint to a specific target, not like random messages. You could have messages specifically addressing to one person. Because if you talk about, when we talk about mass communication, if you publish something in a newspaper, for example, you say you are wishing somebody a birthday newspaper, how many people are going to read that newspaper? There are going to be so many people you don't even know, they're going to read that newspaper, right? So when you talk about the interpersonal, you decide to say, okay, I'll just talk to this person only. I'm not going to involve anybody. And then it's going to be pinpoint to that specific target. And when it comes to decoding, because that was about the message, and then when it comes to decoding is also a one-step process performed by those receivers who can perceive the messages, right? So it's a one-step process because what it means here is it doesn't go through so many platforms, because I am here, you are there. I've spoken something, you heard what I'm saying, you decode it right away there. If you're watching on TV, maybe you don't think much about it. If you're watching on TV, what happens is the message will go through the machines, will go through the decoder, then will go through the satellite. It's all the process there, and then it will reach into a machine in your maybe radio receiver that is going to decode, taking the message from electronic form into an audible form. That is decoding. So it's like there's a process of decoding happening in the machine, and there will be a process of decoding that is happening. It's going to happen into your person, you as a person. That is not that is mass communication and or machine assisted. But in this interpersonal, it's just one step process. It's just you listening to somebody, getting the message and decoding the message. So another element of interpersonal, as I've said, decoding in this form is one-step process performed by a receiver who can perceive the message right away when you are getting the message. Another element of interpersonal communication is feedback, because we talked about the message, we talked about decoding, because that's the process we are talking about for communication. Then on the feedback is immediate. You have immediate feedback and make use of visual and auditory channels. As I've said, that because the person is right away there, you cannot ask somebody something and say, okay, you're going to answer me tomorrow. And then maybe usually you exchange, the way you chat with your friend, you chat with somebody, you get the feedback right away there. Either by speaking, because when we're talking about feedback, what we are saying is, if you remember, when if you have done anything to do with presentation, we say, like public presentation, it's not all about how you speak. It's also how you communicate using, let me say, non-verbal gestures. So you could tell somebody something. Are you interested to go somewhere? That person might not answer you using the words, but the expression of that person could tell you, could signal to you that I think the person is not interested. It means you immediately you get the feedback, even before the person says something, because you are able to see the person, you see the body language. Even the person could just tell you right away, I'm not interested, or I will go. Or so you have got that element of response whereby feedback is immediate in this form of communication. Then when it comes to noise, because if you remember the process of communication, we say we have message, we have got to go channel, then we have got noise. On the noise can be either semantic or environmental, right? I thought, is it this room? Am I feeling important? I'm seeing all the windows are closed in here, even the door. I don't know how about yourself. Are you feeling that it's becoming important in this room? Or am I the only one? I'm the only one. Okay. I might take up my sweater sooner. Right. So what I'm saying, noise can be semantic and environmental. We talked about this. Let me test you to see if you are indeed there in the first class. I'm saying noise in this one could be either semantic or environmental. Noise in interpersonal communication. What is semantic? I know we talked about it. What is, when you say semantic noise, what are we talking about? I remember you were there, if I'm not mistaken. What are we talking about?
Semantics, you say it's a situation that the person is unable to interpret the message of the language that is used.
Oh, the language. Yeah. Then you are reminding me that I think you were indeed there. Because I was trying to get you. Did I saw you? I saw okay, I think you were there. Yeah, I remember now. Okay, so because this is the interpersonal, it means you are here, the way I am here. So if I'm communicating to you, it could happen that you are not getting the message. It's because the way I am here. Had it been I'm not speaking, then I'm just listening, then I'm feeling the room is hot. Concentration levels would go down. It's exactly the way what happens with afternoon classes. Most of the time people say we don't concentrate in afternoon classes. Most of the time it's because it's too hot. That is the environmental. So it could be environmental because we are right away there, or semantics is the now language, the language I'm using. Maybe I'm not using the words that you understand, or maybe the sentence construction is not okay. So it's usually to do with maybe the way I'm speaking. Or most of the times it's like that. Yeah, because we are at the same place. So it could be semantic or environmental. What it means here, it means noise. They could be even other forms of noise, like the actual literal noise, whereby somebody is making a noise outside. But normally, because you are closer, that cannot disturb you much. But even that one could even be included as environmental, because that's where you are. Right? So that's another element of this interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication is far from simple, but it represents the least complicated setting. So if you think about the communication settings, the communication setting that is a little bit not complicated, which is a little bit simpler, is the interpersonal communication. Right? So then we can look at machine-assisted interpersonal communication. You can say machine-assisted interpersonal communication or technology-assisted communication or something like that. It combines the characteristics of both the interpersonal and the mass communication. So we are going to talk about mass communication later. But you just have to say that it combines elements of or characteristics of interpersonal and the mass communication situations. So let me see here. One or more people are communicating by means of a mechanical device, right? Or devices with one or more receivers, right? So if you think about this, you see you are having, because we talked about interpersonal communication, which somehow you could label it as face-to-face communication, because that's what we were talking about, which is in simple terms, face-to-face communication. So this one is not face-to-face communication, but is not mass communication, but have got an element of mass communication and personal. Why is it so? Or why do they say that? They say that because if you think about mass communication cannot take place without the use of technology. It can never take place. If you think about mass communication, there's no way mass communication can happen without the use of technology. So this one, there is the use of technology in this one. And also, there's an element whereby you can talk to only one person, which does not happen in mass communication, which is different. But it is what is interpersonal does. So you can do it like talking to one person. An example, you're talking about the WhatsApp. You could send a WhatsApp message to one person. You could make a phone call to one person. You could talk to a group. You see, talk to a group, and again, which is similar to what the interpersonal communication is. But the coming in of technology is the one that is making it more to have more common or to similarities to mass communication. Let's see what other elements. It allows the source and the receiver to be separated by both time and space, right? So this one, as I said, because it's not face-to-face communication, there's a machine that is going to be assisting you. There is a distance. There could be a difference between you can be separated by both time and space. So you could have space separating you. You can also have time separating you. Somebody somewhere, as somebody's in the United States of America. Here it is 2 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock like this. In USA somewhere like maybe 7 p.m. But you are able to talk, and there's a space, distance, and the time. So there's that element in this one. The machine can give the message permanence by storing it on paper or disk or some other material. So in this one, because there's the use of machine, there's an element of making the message, that message can be made permanent in this one. Because, even I gave an example that at the Nation publications or other media institutions, the bigger ones, what they do, if you know that this is a very sensitive phone call, this person might claim, when the story comes out, some people could claim, I didn't say that. So if you know that the person could claim that he didn't say that, or she didn't say that, there is a specific phone that you use, it records your phone call. So the conversation could be made permanent, kept somewhere. If somebody can come and claim, no, maybe they have sued you. No, I didn't say that. You just go and take a tape and replay it. So there's that element of permanency, or you can store it on paper, because there's a message, or even in the devices, you have the chatty conversations in your WhatsApp. It still remains there, whereby you say, what did that person say? You just go back to your WhatsApp and see, oh, this person said this. So there is that ability of the message to be stored or to be made permanent by being stored somewhere, right? through, as I said, on a paper or on a disk or any other gadgets that you can use. And this one again, the machine can also extend the range of the message by amplifying it or transmitting it over large distances. So I think we talked about it already. Telephone letters can be read several years down the line, right? So the machine can also extend the range of message by amplifying it or transmitting it over large distances. And as you see, I talk about telephone letters. You read them after a long time, and even telephone can be connecting other people that are very far away. Again, here you talk about, and when you're talking about the machines here, usually we'll be talking about more or less like the channel, eh? And then talking about the source here. The source in machine assisted can be a single person or a group of people who may know the receiver or not have first-hand knowledge of the receiver, right? So usually you have a source being a single person or a group, right? So the possibility could be they might know the receiver personally, that okay, they know the person, or they might have little information of the receiver. So that's why we say there are elements of mass communication, because when we come to mass communication, one of the attributes of mass communication is that the senders of the message in mass communication have got little or no knowledge of the receivers, like actual details, because they might know that maybe okay, we are targeting maybe children of these ages, but because it's mass communication, it's radio, they will just assume that the children that we are targeting are listening. Without it could happen that maybe those children are not listening, their elders who are listening, they will not know. So there's that element in mass communication. So that element is also present here. The only difference is they might know the person because it's interpersonal. They might know the person that we know exactly. Maybe it's an interview. They will call you. They will know they have seen the details. In mass communication, you cannot communicate through mass communication while you are targeting one person. That is more or less impossible. If you are using mass communication gadgets, it means you are targeting a group of people, a large group of people. So in this one, there's that element whereby, as I said, that a source could be one person or a single person or a group who have little knowledge of the receiver, or maybe they know the receiver. The possibilities are those. What else in terms of this is a source on the encoding in this type of setting can be complicated or simple, but there must be at least two distinct stages. So there are two distinct stages in this one, which might make it be maybe complicated or simple. The first, let me say, the first instance is that the source translates his or her thoughts into words or symbols, right? So if the source translates his or her thoughts into words or symbols, right? I think that would be a little bit simpler. Or there would be a scenario whereby one or more machines encode the message for transmission or storage, right? So if it does that, it's the way you see like the radio, because usually we say radio TV, we usually just listen to the radio. We don't think much about the process that happens between the one who is broadcasting all the way through the satellite to where you are. That is complicated. If they can tell you how it goes, you see, this is complicated. But if somebody just write a letter and then send you a letter, it will be simpler, because you just need maybe somebody carrying the letter, then deliver it. Not even interpreting it. Changing it into a certain format. So you see that based on maybe the channel that is going to be, the message is going to pass by, the encoding could be simpler or complicated. Based on, because I'm saying if it's going to be through radio, TV, it means that the encoding need to be in a certain way to travel into the air in a digital format. So that would be another issue. But if it's going to be in a one other way, it would be simple. So it will depend on how maybe the message is going to be transmitted. But as I said, if you think about if you compare to interpersonal is simpler. You already know, which is face to face. It's already, you are there. You don't have to write a letter to a person who is right away there. To say, I want to communicate it to you, then writing a letter and give you, it's awkward. Unless if you are cheating in an exam, then you do that. But if you are face to face right away there, just speak to a person or signal. But if you decide, it's okay, I want to broadcast my message as a radio, it means you're going to have to speak, to have machine, to speak on the microphone, and it has to be changed into a certain format. So it could be like that. So that's the thing. Another element here is the channels. We're talking about the channel in machine assisted. The channels are more restricted in the machine assisted setting, right? Channels are restricted because, as I said, interpersonal, you have got so many channels. Because you are there, you could decide to just, you know what you do. I think the ladies, I've seen you, ladies, you are also fond of that. I can't say much about it, but somehow when you want to have a conversation without speaking, you are good at that. I don't want to be, but I've seen that whereby, I don't know what to do, maybe you tell us one time, whereby you are there, you are speaking something, then somebody is passing, then you are quiet. Then somebody is passing, then you are laughing. What do you speak? How do you? It seems like you have said something. They didn't speak anything.
It's through the eyes.
The eyes. So that's now what I'm talking about. Because it's interpersonal. You could communicate and have a conversation without speaking. You can even start it, and it's funny. You can even start the conversation even from the beginning, telling somebody there's somebody who is coming here without saying anything. A person will come and you tell the person, can you know what that, without saying anything. And you complete the conversation and to find even a joke and a laugh. That's how interpersonal. So you can use it, as you are saying, you can use the eyes, you can use it even the hands, you can use it. So there are so many, you can speak in interpersonal. But in machine assisted, you already know that it is supposed to travel through a machine. Some other, channels could not be available. Right? Like, as I'm saying, even a sense of smell could communicate something in interpersonal. But here you cannot use the smell in machine assisted. It's almost impossible. So you have, as I say here, channels are more restricted in the machine assisted as compared to interpersonal. Whereas interpersonal communication can make use of several channels simultaneously, machine assisted settings generally rely on one or two. Right? For instance, you have email or maybe which is relying on site. Then you have something like maybe a small number of predetermined messages that cannot be altered once they are encoded. So we're talking about here, if there are messages like on WhatsApp, usually I don't know if does what I know it's latest the WhatsApp have got now that capability of they say deleting, whereby they give you delete to all. They say that, which is also suspicious because they did that, but they have got their own intention of saying that how can they delete something and now inform the people who are supposed to receive the message that something has been deleted. Why? It's more or less like they call it outside, they say snitching. Why are you telling the people that? Because if you have deleted, don't tell them. But once you just indicated that something has been deleted, you see people are curious. What did you write? They want to know what you have deleted. And you remember now there's this GB WhatsApp nowadays for crooks with the anti-delete. I don't know why you want the anti-delete capability. Because I was even saying GB WhatsApp is for crooks. Literally. They teach you to be a crook because they are teaching you can view somebody's profile without showing that somebody has a view. Why? Why are you hiding? Because it's like you are sneaking. Yeah. It's as if you are someone like an FBI agent. That you are spying on somebody. You want somebody to see that you have watched. So most of the elements that come from GPOP WhatsApp, it's as if they're encouraging you to be like sort of a crook, like anti-delete. There's a lot of things. So I know that those things that do happen, but I don't know if there's a capability of whereby edit. Do they have any capability of edit? Whereby we have sent a message, then you can edit the message you have sent. I don't think that one is there. The way you do at Facebook. So that's why they're saying that you can have in machine assistant. Usually you can have that element whereby you can send the message, but you cannot maybe alter the message. That you want to change the message. For you to change the message, you have to send another message. To say, no, I didn't mean this, so it's a little bit different. While if you talk about the interpersonal, you could immediately say, no, I didn't meant this. I meant that or whatever. So that's another element whereby channels are limited and you don't have that capability of that you could alter the messages usually. Right. So you also, what else do we have on this one? The receivers. Okay, I've already talked about receivers can be in sight of the source or out of the view. Because what you just need to keep in mind of machine assisted is that it has got the elements of mass communication and this. So when you talk about mass communication, I think you're going to appreciate it because usually mass communication you don't see the receivers. Now in this one. The receivers could be out of your sight, or they could be in your sight. You could see them, but you could not maybe communicate to them by just speaking. You need to have maybe what you call this one, the gadget whereby you use to speak to like how do you call it? Like this. Hey, this is what do you call that? A megaphone. You need maybe a megaphone. You could see, you have even been seeing in the markets now, even in our locations. They will see you, but they know that you cannot hear them if they shout. So they will use a megaphone to communicate. That's machine assisted communication. But they could be seeing, that's the person I want is that one. But for a person to get the message. Or you might not be seen. So that's a scenario of this machine assisted. And what else do we have in this one? Feedback might be immediate or delayed because on the feedback on the interpersonal we talked about it's immediate, while in this one might be immediate in terms of maybe you're calling a phone, somebody will answer that way, or delayed meaning you have sent a message and the person will respond maybe later on, or maybe will tell you maybe I will reply but not immediate. So you could have those elements in this one. What else do we have? In many situations, feedback can be difficult, if not impossible. A receipt from an ATM machine, that's an example. You will receive, they are communicating to you at the ATM machine. They will tell you, you have drawn this, you have done this, your balance is this. How can you reply right away there? There's no any channel of replying there. Why? How can they get this feedback? So you have to go to another process. So that's an example whereby you're going to have a scenario whereby it's impossible to give feedback on a communication. An ATM, a receipt from the ATM machine, that's an example. Noise in the machine assisted settings can be semantic and environmental as in interpersonal communication, but it can also be mechanical, because you already know, because there's these machines, there's a noise that can be there, would be they would have that noise of semantic, maybe the message, coding on the messages or language was not okay. You would have environmental, which could be, maybe it's because of the weather, there is maybe poor communication or reception or something like that. Could also be machines. The actual machines have got a problem. So you have you have noise in those two machine, semantic and environmental in this one. What else do we have? Finally, interference with the message might be due in part to difficulties with the machine. Okay, it's the same thing. Talking about the same thing. So we can appreciate mass communication to try to appreciate what we've been talking about. So machine assisted is that one, which is closer to mass communication, but it's not mass communication. So the third one, as we have talked about here, mass communication. There's this definition that they put for mass communication. This definition usually appreciates that when you talk about mass communication, because there's the way we talk about communication in our field of journalism. The internet, the advent of the internet has changed a lot of things. Before the advent of the internet, it was simple to maybe talk about other forms of communication easily. Like when we talk about mass communication, mass communication, there was no way a single person could perform mass communication. There was no way before the internet. But now, because of the coming of the internet, it's possible for one person to perform a mass communication process. But now what we're going to do, we are not going to regard the internet first. We are going to have this definition. When they talk about mass communication, they were talking about the institutions. Because mass communication in the past, you had institutions that now had to, involve themselves in the process of sending messages. There was no way that one person could send. You had, for example, newspaper. Newspaper, you know how a news organization works. You have to have a reporter gathering information. Reporter have to encode the message into maybe writing. Go to the newsroom. There's an editor there. An editor should see it. Then make changes. Give it to the other editor. Maybe see it, make changes. Give it to the publisher. The publisher should publish it. Then all the process until the same. And you have to see the process it was going. There was no way those processes one person could do. And at the end, there should be a distributor, whereby we will distribute to specific locations. People, and at the distributor, there should be sellers. Sellers would sell to the people. So that was a mass communication example. When you think about radio, it's the same thing. There are engineers there, reporters there. There are a lot of people involved when you go to TV, it was the same thing. So mass communication was achieved, was done by specific institutions that were in the business of selling the news. Let me just say, selling news, giving out messages. So this definition I want to give you of mass communication usually is basic on that, whereby there are institutions. Okay. Mass communication is saying mass communication refers to the process by which a complex organization, with the aid of one or more machines, right? So I think you can communicate with what we're talking about, machine assisted communication, right? So mass communication refers to the process by which a complex organization, with the aid of one or more machines, produces and transmits public messages right? Public messages that are directed at a large, heterogeneous, something like this, heterogeneous and scattered audiences. Okay, so let me say it again. Mass communication refers to the process, right? The process by which a complex organization, with the aid of one or more machines, produces and transmits public messages that are directed at a large, that's number one, heterogeneous, which I was talking about there, and scattered audiences. So you can hear the message here, the definition, whereby it's now incorporating what you are talking about, the machine assisted, whereby there's going to be the use of the machine, and it's an organization, but the difference is you're talking about the messages are aimed to be public. That's number one, public, and they are targeting a group which is a large group, heterogeneous, which means you're talking about a group with different levels of people in the society. You have people that are educated, you have got people that are not educated, some are very educated, some they are maybe nurses, some they are doctors, some they are kids. So you're talking about heterogeneous group, right? And also scattered audiences, meaning the group that is being targeted, they are not at one location. They are scattered across the area. So that's mass communication. So I think you can differentiate with what we were talking about from interpersonal, whereby it's one person, two people, and a group, one person or group to a person or group. This one we say is the same thing again, one person to a group, but the difference is on the machine assisted. We say there is the involvement of mechanical devices, but in the first one and the second one, they don't target the large group. It's just a group, if it's a group, not a large group. And two, it's not a heterogeneous group. It's not a group that is unknown. They are said that in the second one, a group might be known, or they might have a little bit knowledge of the group, you see. But while in mass communication, you might have no knowledge of the actual group who is going to be receiving the message. It's more like, as I talked about, you assume that this is the group we are targeting, right? So audiences are scattered, as I've also talked about, right? Okay. Yeah.
Where?
Oh, it's room 60 here, right? Okay. So when you talk about a source, when you talk about the source, yes, in the mass communication, as I talked about, until the advent of the internet, if we remove the internet, because when it comes to the internet, everything changes. When it comes to the internet, source in the mass communication could be one person. It could be a group or one person. But when we remove the internet, it means that there's no way a source can be one person. It should be a group of people in mass communication. There's no way, because of the process that takes place for the message to be encoded and transmitted. So if we remove the internet, let me just say here, or let me just write this. Until the advent of the internet and the web, the source was a group of individuals who acted in predetermined in an organization setting. For example, mass communication was the end product of more than one person's effort. So before the internet, just know that mass communication was an effort of so many people, right? But when they come to the internet, it made it possible that one person could be a source. Some of these platforms you see, maybe blogs you see, they are just one person is behind. You don't even have a group, right? For both the traditional and the internet-based, you're talking about the source usually has a little detailed information about its particular audience. So even if it can be one person on the internet or a group, but in both cases, as I've talked about, the source usually have little detail or information about its particular audience. So that's the difference when we talk about mass media, mass communication. So when it comes to encoding in a mass communication, encoding in mass communication is always a multi-stage process, right? Encoding is a multi-stage process because you know the mass communication. You don't have just it's different with face-to-face we talked about. There should be so many stages of encoding. Mass communication, like channels, are characterized by imposition of at least one or usually maybe more machine in the process of sending the message. So I'm saying that if you don't think much about what happens in sending the message in the mass communication, you will think that maybe it's straightforward. But when you sit down and say, okay, I'm sending the message through the internet, even if you are one person, think about the process that takes place for you when you type your message on the computer or on your phone. How for the message to like leave where you are, to travel through whatever means to reach the source. You discover there are so many processes. You see, yeah, they have to go until if you have got those satellites in space, they could even reach the satellites. Go to the satellites and go back. So many processes. If it's maybe through the sea cables, it means they should go under the sea. So there is no way whereby you can communicate through mass communication and the encoding process be a simple, straightforward process. There should be. It's always a multi-stage process. That's maybe one of the elements of when it comes to encoding on the mass communication. And on the channel in the mass communication, these channels, the machines translate a message from one channel to another, right? For example, if you think about television, television makes use of complicated devices that transforms light energy into electrical energy and then back again. So in the channel, you have got the machines that will be translating the message from one channel to another. An example, as I said, you're talking about the machines that you are using to send. They're going to be changing that message into a format that could be easily transmissible, right? Then on the decoding or the receiving of the message, in mass communication, messages in mass communication are public. I've already said that in the definition, that in mass communication, the institutions or organizations that will transmit messages or public messages. So in mass communication, messages are not personal, are public. No wonder we talked about this interpersonal, then the interpersonal again, but this one is not interpersonal. That is a mass communication. No wonder when we talk about this form, there should be the receiving or the receivers are so many people who are going to be receiving the message in mass communication on the decoding side. And anyone who can afford the cost of a newspaper or a CD player or a TV set can receive the message. Because and just as we go again, in mass communication, we talked about, we have you have radio, you have newspapers, then you have got television. So these, a term that these are called, specifically they say mass or let me say mass media vehicles. This could be taken as vehicles. Now, if you are having a vehicle like, as I'm saying, radio, it's something that so many people have got radio sets. So many people, so if once you have a vehicle of mass communication, you will receive the message. As I'm saying, there's no way you can say, you're going to go to a radio station and say, I've got this message, and you pay for the message. And you say, no, I want this message to only go to this person. And then you say that, okay, they will announce it on the radio, but the message will only go to that person. Can that be possible? If it's going to be on radio, can you tell that, okay, other people, around 10 o'clock, don't switch on the radio, can you tell the people to do that? It can't happen. Once you put it in your, once you have that vehicle of mass communication, everyone who have the vehicle is going to get the message. So that's the difference with others, whereby you're talking about in this one, the message is always going to have to be public in terms of the receiving. And what else? More or less say in that one, as I say, anyone who can afford the cost of the newspaper or CD player or TV set, they could receive the message. The same message is sent to all receivers, so it means it's the same message. You don't have to say this message is sent to this person and this is a different. The same message is going to be sent to all the receivers at the same time. Messages in mass communication is addressed to, the way the letter is written, to whom it may concern. So when you are sending messages, or the messages are sent in mass communication is addressed to whom it may concern. Meaning, if you want some other people who maybe do something or who have got something, you say to all the people who have got this, you should shout, meaning people are going to, so many people are going to listen to the message. But now it will be to whom it is concerned. People who are mentioned that you want are going to be the one reacting. If they want to react to that one in a certain way or whatever. But I'm saying even feedback is a different, because it's a problem. You cannot tell the people you have, I've been seeing, even maybe you have heard it on radio, whereby you are having a kids phone-in program. Now this is a phone-in program for kids. And you listen to them, and you discover an elder person is calling. Oh, this is a program for kids. Why are you calling? No. I didn't know. Imagine. So you got to control. You have told the people this is a program for kids, but there are some other people there that are going to still call. You find you have these discussion programs. I've heard like on the city capital, whereby they will tell you, okay, we introduce a topic, and then we are discussing this today. Then you have to be calling. But all this. There are people who call on the telephone, on the show, who doesn't know what you are discussing. They will call today. What are you discussing today? But they have called. You mean you called but didn't know what the program is, what we are talking about? So why were you calling? Imagine. But maybe you say, okay, people who have heard the topic, can you call? So it's a nature whereby it's more or less like to whom it may concern. But it's also a problem, because you cannot control the people, because the reaction might come to the people who are not even concerned. You say this is addressed to maybe specific people, but you discover people who are going to call to complain are not going to be those people. Are going to be other people who are not even interested in what you are broadcasting. So that's the nature of how mass communication is. Because I think it was not mass communication; it was interpersonal. like the way, imagine the way it is interviews. When they make a short list, they call specific people. They call. So imagine, had it been the short list, when they make a short list, they announce on radio. Do you think the people who would come, they would be the only people who they called? They could tell people on radio. Once they call, you discover there were 5 people called, they could come maybe 100 people. We heard on the radio. What did you hear? Did you hear your name? No. But we heard that, they are shortlisted. Because it's mass communication. Everyone is going to be getting the message, So it's not being controlled, even when they come with the feedback. But when it's this one, machine assisted, you will know that you just make specifically. Maybe you can have a group for lawyers. You just send in that group, or you send the person a message directly. So that's the difference. So on the mass communication, that's another element. And what I've been talking about here is like I've preempted on the feedback, because somehow it's the feedback. Feedback, like here in the messages in mass communication, the message flow in mass communication is typically one way, and the feedback in many instances is more difficult than in interpersonal setting. However, the internet is rapidly changing the situation, as I've said. But without the internet, you discover that if you want to have feedback, as I'm saying, to know that, okay, are the people impressed? It's very difficult to know. It's easy, even the newspapers, to just print the newspapers and send the newspapers out to say something on radio. Because if, like for example, even when you have people the ones we do the programs, can do the program on radio. For me to know that maybe people have liked the show, most of the time I know because of WhatsApp. It's a technology. It's more or less like the internet. It's when I can know, like there's a group maybe talking about gospel, hip hop, whatever. Then I could see that people are, even the show, when the show is in progress, I could see that people are commenting. We're listening to this show, So you could see, people are listening. But imagine if there were no internet, you could be broadcasting, and you'd be assuming that people are listening. Maybe the only way would have been maybe phone in. You tell people to call, and in the old time, sometimes they will say messages. Send me a message, which is an old thing. But nowadays, because of the internet, people could just use WhatsApp, could go on the Facebook page, and you know the feedback. So, but without that, feedback in mass communication usually is difficult. Why? Because you are addressing so many people who you don't even know. And it's not just a matter of knowing by name, but you're talking about it's everybody. There are fishermen there, there are lawyers there, there are police Tomado there, there are police Masamba there, there are Anna School there. But that's what you're talking about. So imagine all those people. All of them could have maybe listened to the program. If you are broadcasting now, for you to know, kodi anao program. I don't even know these kids programs. No wonder the people, maybe they make sure that the interaction phone in maybe. But for you to get feedback from the kids program, where they're listening, it's different. So that's how mass communication, when it comes to feedback, is you have got a problem in getting reaction from the audience if you remove the internet. That is, internet is making things simpler and simpler nowadays. Okay, so when it comes to noise, noise in mass communication, the setting, when it comes to the noise, it can be semantic, it can be environmental, it can be mechanical, which is similar to this. It can be semantic, to do with the language. It can be mechanical, to do with the device, the mechanical device. It could be, what do I say here? Did you say environmental? Yeah, so it's similar to the other one. Since there may be more than one machine involved in the process, mechanical noise can be compounded, right? Which means, had it been there was one process, Mechanical noise could be maybe just one. For example, if it's not, maybe if it was a megaphone, it means mechanical noise could be maybe one problem of the megaphone. But because it's mass communication, whereby you're going to speak to a microphone, that's mechanical. There could be a problem in the microphone. That microphone is connected to a mixer. There could be a noise in the mixer. From the mixer, it's going to be transferred to a machine. There could be a problem in the machine. From the machine, it's going to be transferred to a transmitter. There could be something from the transmitter to the air satellite. So that's why I say mechanical noise in the mass communication could be compounded. Meaning could be so many levels because of the level of transmission. And I mean, because of the level of the machines that are used to just transmit a message. So as compared with the other, maybe in this, because in this one, in the personal, it could be maybe just because like a phone line, a process is not that complicated as compared to if you talk about radio broadcast, TV broadcast, it's a little bit complex. So in simple terms, as I'm saying, noise in mass communication could be semantic, environmental, and mechanical. But on the mechanical noise could be compounded because of the many processes that it goes through. Right, so these are the three levels. I mean, when we talk about the settings of the mass communication, right? Then let's see. Where are we? This is to a few minutes. Let's see what we can just do. Mass media classifications and characteristics. I think, let me see here. These are just some of the terms. Maybe some of these them I've already talked about. For example, if we talk about a medium is a channel through which a message travels from one source to the receiver. So we talked about that before. We say a medium, like I know there could be thin line between a channel and a medium, because sometimes they are used interchangeably as one thing, but there might be very thin line, but this is still, we're talking about the same thing. So in the meantime, let's just talk about those channels like as a medium through which message travels from the source to the receiver, right? So a medium is a singular, media is plural. Then mass media, then we're talking about the channels used for mass communication, right? So mass communication, we have got the channels, right, to communicate the messages. So those channels that are communicating mass messages, public messages, that's what we call in mass media, right? Because sometimes people, they will ask you, you people of the members of the media, what about mass media? So sometimes they don't even, we are used to those call mass media or whatever. But for the people, I discovered that ordinary people, they don't know. When you say good mass media, what are you talking about? Even when you say media, what are you talking about? Yeah, but we know we're talking about media. Usually, we're talking about channels, right? So our definition of mass media will include not only the mechanical devices that transmits and sometimes store the messages, right? For example, TV, radio, microphone, and the like, but also institutions that use these machines to transmit messages. That's what I was saying. In the mass media, when we talk about mass media, we should keep in mind that there are institutions that transmits, they do encode, they do source the information and encode or package this information and send them through mass media. So those are institutions or organizations. So we should be thinking about that. There are organizations that do that. That do that. And when we talk about the mass media of television or radio, or newspaper, magazines, sound recording, film, we'll be referring to the people, not just all the people. We're going to be referring to the people. We're going to be referring to the policies that they use. We're going to be referring to the organizations and the technology that is going into producing and distributing the mass media. So it's everything. Yeah? My policies they are using, organization many talking about the as I've said, the what I was talking about here. The organizations, the people, the policies, and the technologies that goes into producing and distributing the mass media. So, in the mass media, you have to have machines that will help in the production, and even machines that will help in the distribution of the message. And I've talked about a media vehicle. Right? A media vehicle, as I say, a media vehicle is a single component of the mass media. If you're talking about a single component, such as a newspaper, it's a media vehicle. We're talking about newspaper, talk about a radio station, or talk about TV network or a magazine. That's could be justified as a media vehicle, right? So examples of other, because usually when you talk about mass media, we usually talk about the main ones, like for study's sake, we talk about usually we study radio, we study newspaper, we study magazine, then if somehow we talk about maybe others, but there are a lot of them. For example, if you talk about billboards, and I know they also, if the body say books is one of them, but you have comic books like books. You would have even the posters. They could be, the posters, direct mail, but these are, you need to explain them in a certain way. That's why we go to the main ones. But somehow when you go to like this, maybe posters, you could just say print. When you say print, you can break it down. In the print, you have books. Then you will say, okay, you have magazines. Then you have newspaper. Then you'll be going down, then we'll say posters, you have whatever. So when you talk about billboards, it will be print, billboard, and the same billboard nowadays you will have an electronic billboard. I think we've been seeing them. A billboard whereby it's electronically, messages are being placed in electronic. Because the billboard, I'm saying, or even a poster, you could say it's a mass, one of the maybe media vehicle, like, in the sense that when you put a poster somewhere, unlike maybe, or even here, see you put for example, a poster on the board, you assume that, this is the students are going to be reading. But are you sure that only students are going to be reading that? What about if somebody comes around here, it's not a student here? Is he going to shut the eyes that I cannot read this? You see the person who is not even intending, other people could come and read the same thing. So that's the nature of the mass media, whereby you might assume that maybe you know the receivers, and you can be assured that, these people are going to be getting the message. But there are going to be other people getting the same message, not the people you targeted. So that's different. No wonder, if you are to communicate, you will decide, it's okay, if I want to communicate specifically, to pinpoint a person, then it will be interpersonal or machine assisted interpersonal. Those will be direct. But when it goes to mass media, it's a different thing. You should be ready that, okay, a lot of people who are not prepared are going to be getting the message. Right. We talked about the other forms. We talked about print media. We talked about the newspapers, the electronic media. We talked about radio, television. If you remember that time we say print, electronic, and then they say new media. And if you remember that time, we studied like in the introduction. We said I started with the traditional media. We said traditional media. Then we say traditional media was separated because that time we say before the advent of the mass communication we do now. Traditional media was not mass communication. It was just communication by that time because it was specific. Village, this is village, that location. So we had that. It was still they were using a form of media because they were using traditional elements to communicate, right? But it was traditional media. But if you say it could be, let me say, if you want to explain or if you want to categorize it as being mass media, then it would depend on maybe how wide. Because if you say it's just being a village, it would be okay. But if you say, okay, it is maybe Gule Wankuru, then it was traveling. So that would be also a form of mass media. So in a sense, because we didn't have this new technology, it could be also viewed as, we had some form of mass media by then. But through traditional, whereby people had to be traveling, no, not using any technology, but have to be traveling from this location to that location, sending the same message, right? So we talked about traditional media, I'm saying, but you have just to explain it for the mass media. We talked about print media as other form of media. We talked about electronic media. So we say electronic, you have radio, we have television. Then we say the new media. Right? So in the broader terms, if they can say, well, okay, what are the forms of maybe mass, let me just say mass media in the broader terms? You could just, even if they say two forms, then you could just say print media and electronic media in the broadest sense. We could talk about print media because the print is where you have magazines and everything. New media, because it's a one now that we talked about that is to do with the internet, is more electronic media. Because you cannot have new media without an electronic element. It can't happen. But for the sake of trying to separate them, to be able to be classifying them, that's why we just putting them aside as another form of media, right? So, what else can we? What's the time now? We are almost done. Okay. Okay. What else? Yeah, I think we wanted to, unfortunately, because we are taking a lot of time talking about this. We wanted to talk about perspectives of mass communication, but this we'll talk about them in the next class. I can't start to talk about these now. Okay, I'll just finish with this. This is just to wrap up. There is this author called Darton with his colleagues suggested that traditionally the mass media has been differentiated from other types of communication, right? In terms of 4 essential characteristics. So there's this guy, you say, okay, how can you differentiate mass media from other forms? So what he did, he came up with 4 elements that would differentiate mass media from the others. So first one is say distance. You say communication between those who send messages and receive messages are impersonal or like immediacy. The issue is because they are not at the same place, there's that element of distance. Then you talk about technology, whereby mass communication requires a vehicle, such as a television receiver, a printing machine, and so forth. So it's a distance, 1, technology 2, then scale, which is we talked about already, whereby the messages are targeting so many people, large number of people, not just a very few people. And lastly, he talked about commodity, whereby say an interesting feature of mass communication is that it comes at a price. Usually mass media, you don't have mass media that is cheap or free. Let me even say that is free. Because if you see other like this, what they say, oh, just call your person, you will tell you something. But think about mass media messages, the ones you know. To get it from the mass media, you get them for free. If you don't have money, if you don't have anything, for example, you're just a person, you are coming from somewhere, so they tell you, okay, you want to get a message from the mass media. Can you get them for free? Because you need, if you want to get it from the radio, you need to have the radio set. If you want to get it from the TV, you need to buy a TV set. If you want to get it from the newspaper, you need to buy a newspaper. So you see, if you check the vehicles of the media in mass communication, it's like a commodity. You don't have a free thing or whatever to get it, right? So last, not dependable. Last one. Functions of mass media, we are simple. Differentiated media, different media have different primary uses, different groups of whatever. So we are going to start from there next time, because we'll see when we are going to talk about perspectives on mass communication. When we are going to be talking about perspectives on mass communication, we are going to be appreciating mass communication and the society, because that's what we're all about. Where we are going is to connect the people and how they use and the mass media. Now, on the perspectives on the mass communication, we are going to check on some paradigms and some approaches that are used to study mass communication. So we're going to be linking with the uses of mass communication on different levels by the people, either by the group of people or by personal. So that's what we're going to do next.